What is up, guys? Today we're taking a look at this case right here. This is the brand new Corsair 6500D Airflow. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, before we get started, let's take a little trip down memory lane here. Corsair was actually one of the first companies to come out with a dual compartment case that was really made to show off your build. That case, of course, was the Crystal Series 680X. We reviewed that case. We have a video on that case. I actually used that case in my main PC build. We actually have a video on that. I'll link, of course, all of that stuff below. But that was like the beginning of this sort of dual compartment case craze. Corsair was one of the first companies to start that. And since then, they haven't put out another dual compartment case. And with the basically explosion in popularity of dual compartment cases, we were wondering, when's Corsair going to come out with another dual compartment case? Well, that wait is over because we have the 6500 series here. The 6500 series from Corsair is initially going to launch with 3 cases. So we have the 6500D Airflow here, and that's really made for performance and, of course, high airflow. So the big difference between this case and the next case, which is the 6500X, is that the 6500X removes the mesh front panel, it removes the front cooling bracket, and then in the place of that, you are going to get a tempered glass panel, and it is a completely pillarless look. So there's no support on this corner here, so you get a great look inside your system. So that's the 6500X. And then finally, they will have a 6500X RGB that is going to ship with 3 120mm RGB fans and the IQ Link Hub as well. So that one is going to be ready to go out of the box. Now, all 3 of these cases will be available in both black and white colors. You're also going to be able to pick up Elite panel kits, which will be available in 5 different finishes to really add some unique customization to the case. Now, as I mentioned, this case is available in both white and black versions. As you can see, I have the white version here. Now, both the 6500D Airflow and 6500X will not come with any fans at all. So as you can see, I've installed some fans in this case. These dual compartment or aquarium style cases kind of range in sizes, but this is definitely a larger one. I'll go ahead and put the official dimensions up on the screen like I always do. This is also pretty heavy out of the box. That is because we have an all steel construction. Even the top and front panels, which are typically plastic on a lot of cases, those are all made of steel as well. As we take a look at the front of the case, we have that large mesh panel, and it has white accent panels on each side. These panels, as I said, are steel, not plastic, which I definitely love to see. On the larger accent panel is a simple Corsair logo. There is a mesh filter that pulls out from the front of the case. It extends the entire length of the bottom of the case. The front mesh panel of the case easily pulls off. With it removed, we can see that it does have a fine mesh filter built into it to help keep dust out of your system. With the front panel removed, there is a cooling bracket behind it. And as you can see, we have 3 120mm fans installed there. This front cooling bracket will support either 3 120 or 2 140mm fans, as well as radiators up to 360mm. Moving up to the top of the case, the mesh continues as we have a large ventilated section that takes up most of the top of the case. Just like the front of the case, this section can easily be removed. There's a little tab at the back that will help you lift it off. With it removed, we can see that it does not have the fine mesh that the front of the case has. This is good because in most situations, the top of your case is going to be used for exhaust. The top cooling bracket supports either 3 120 or 140mm fans, as well as radiators up to 360mm. On the far right of the top of the case, you'll find your buttons and connections. There's a large power button, headphone and microphone combo jack, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port, 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports, and a smaller reset button. The main side panel of the case is a large tempered glass panel. This will allow you to fully show off your system. This tempered glass side panel easily opens up just like a door. You just pull it up from the bottom and you can easily access all of your components inside. Now there typically is a locking screw here, but I have it removed because once you remove it, you can actually fully remove the panel because it's on a hinge system. So you pull up and you can easily remove the panel, especially for when you're working inside. You don't want a glass panel sort of hanging off the case. As we take a look at the back of the case, we can get a better idea of the dual compartment layout of the case. On the main side, we have a cooling mount that will support either a single 120 or 140 millimeter fan, our motherboard mounts, and some ventilation. There's also a Velcro strap at the bottom of the case that can be used to organize the cables coming out of your motherboard. Moving over to the other side, at the top, we find a ventilated door that's held into place by a single thumb screw. Removing the door, we find two removable hard drive trays that support either a single 3.5-inch drive or 2.5-inch drive. Each of these trays are made of plastic. Moving down, we find a power supply mount, which we can see is a vertical mount. The opposite side panel of the case is completely mesh, which is really nice to see as we want as much airflow as possible for the components in the backside compartment. The opposite side panel is held into place by our two captive screws here. We simply just loosen those up, and when you do that, you'll notice that the panel's not going to fall or anything because it is sort of held into place. Now you want to put your hand under here, and then there's a little tab. You just push out on the tab and the panel will release just like that. Very easy. Now, to put this back on, there are some grooves in here. So you put the end of the panel into those grooves, line them up and close it. And then you just press it to lock it into place. It's on there. And then all you have to do is just tighten the screws to fully lock everything back in place. The case itself is lifted off the ground by 4 feet. These feet are actually a set of 2 long pieces of steel. Again, really nice to see this over the typical plastic feet we see on most cases. As we take a look inside the main compartment of the case, the thing that takes up the most space is, of course, our motherboard mounts. This case will support motherboards up to extended ATX, and there are adequate holes in the motherboard tray to make it compatible with reverse connection motherboards like Asus's BTF and MSI's Project Zero. There are cable routing holes in both the top and bottom of the motherboard tray, with the top ones having rubber inserts installed. As far as CPU coolers go, this case will support coolers as tall as 190 millimeters. The motherboard tray only extends about 80% of the case and then it does end. This allows for side mount cooling, which is something we did not have on the original 680X. The side cooling mount by default actually sits back in the case. It can actually be moved up if you're installing fans there. The side mount will support 3 120 millimeter fans or radiators up to 360 millimeters. Where the motherboard tray ends, Corsair has added 4 large cable routing holes which do have the rubber inserts installed. Corsair tells us that these rubber inserts will not fall out when you are routing large cables through them. The entire bottom of the case is ventilated and will support 3 120 or 140 millimeter fans, as well as radiators up to 360 millimeters. When it comes to your expansion slot covers, there are a total of 8. They feature smaller thumb screws than what we're used to seeing. By default, vertical GPU mounting is not supported, but Corsair will be selling a vertical mount kit that will make that possible. When it comes to GPU support, you can install graphics cards as long as 400 millimeters or 370 millimeters if you plan on installing a front radiator. The back compartment is very similar to what we saw with the 680X. Towards the top of the case, we find the hard drive cage that houses the 2 removable trays that I showed you earlier. On the outside of the cage are 2 removable 2.5-inch mounts. This brings the total amount of hard drives that you can install in this case to 4. Below the hard drive cage is our power supply mount, which, as I mentioned, is a vertical mount. We can also get a better look at the side mount cooling bracket. Now this bracket can actually be removed from the case easily as it's only held into place by a single screw. As I mentioned, this bracket will support 3 120 millimeter fans or radiators up to 360 millimeters. The back side of the case makes it really easy for you to hide all of your cables, so the main side of the case is nice and clean and you have a very clean build overall. Now there are plenty of tie-down points throughout the case, so you can use the included zip ties to keep everything nice and organized. There's also a handful of cable hooks that make it really easy to, organize those cables coming from your fans. Another thing that I did want to mention about this case is that it does come with this little kind of toolbox that has all of your mounting hardware, screws, zip ties, and Corsair is including their very cool quick turn screws. So these are their brand new screws that they have developed, and essentially they allow you to screw in fans in 1.5 turns, basically. It is so fast and so easy. It saves you so much time. It saved me so much time when I installed the fans in this case. So it's really awesome that Corsair is including these screws with this case. When it comes to testing cases, we measure both temperatures as well as noise levels. So here's a full breakdown of our test system. As we come to the end here, I think Corsair had a lot to really live up to when it came to a dual compartment case. Like I said, the original 680X was an awesome case. I used it as my main PC case for years. It was that good. So they have a lot to live up to there. But on top of that, it's been a while since 2019. Pretty much every company has a dual compartment case now. So, they had to stand out from the kind of pack of all the other dual compartment cases as well. And I think with this case series, they have done that. The big upgrade over the original 680X is going to be that side mount cooling. So the original didn't have that. Now we have side mount cooling, which is great. That allows you to, have that front tempered glass panel in the 680X if you wanted it. But in general, it just adds more cooling as well. And it makes for a really cool look if you are going to go ahead and install RGB fans there. Now, talking about cooling, of course, we have the airflow version of the case. So we have tons of room for cooling. The bottom, front, and top can support 360 millimeter radiators. The side mount can fit 360 as well. And then the top, front, and bottom can fit, 120 or 140 millimeter fans. So you have so much room for cooling in this case, which I definitely like. Like I said, this is one of the larger dual compartment cases that's kind of out right now. But I do have to say, it's going to fit everything. You can fit extended ATX motherboards. It does have 8 expansion slot covers as well. You can fit the longest graphics cards, full-size power supplies up to 220 millimeters, CPU coolers up to 190 millimeters. I mean, there isn't much that's going to not fit in this case, which I really, really like. They also have like a lot of DIY or like when you're actually building in this case, things that really help you. The quick turn screws, I absolutely love those. The rubber inserts that are on the cable routing holes, I really like those as well. They do not come off when you're like pulling your cables through, which is one of the biggest pains when it comes to building. This case pretty much has it all. Like I said, you have, the side panels that are extremely easy to remove. There really isn't much that I didn't like about this case. If I was to really nitpick, if anything, is that the bottom cable routing holes, they're just open. It would have been nice to see rubber inserts there just to make things a little bit cleaner. I definitely would have liked that. Also, for some reason, for the airflow version, they're not coming out with an RGB version that comes with the fans and the controller and everything. Now on the 680X, you will get that option, but for some reason, they didn't have it on the airflow version. It would have been nice because I think a lot of people just want a case that's good to go out of the box. Both the 650D airflow and 650X will not come with any fans, so you will have to go ahead and pick up the fans yourself, which again, is not a bad thing, but it would be nice to have an option for people who just want fans out of the box and they'll be good to go with the airflow version. So you don't have that there, but overall, I think this is a great dual compartment case. It's a great follow-up to the original 680X, and I can see a lot of people doing new builds in this case for sure. Now, both the 650D airflow and 650X will be $199.99, with the RGB version being a little bit more expensive coming out a few weeks later. But I think that price is fair, especially considering the 680X that came with the fans was, I believe, $259 or $249. So $199.99 I think is a good price for this case. So if you have any questions about this case, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. And if you did enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up. We'll see you guys in the next video.